I think it's a beating heart that so much wants peace, joy, hope, possibility. I don't think that ever dies out if we're still alive and sitting up and breathing. And I believe people walk the Grace Trail for that reason. They want to find their footing in the insanity of the world and choose their next step in the direction of where they want to go and where they know they want to be.
Welcome to Coach Soul, the podcast where we explore therapeutic ways to the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Steve Hudgins. I'm a licensed professional counselor dedicated to helping you navigate life's challenges. In each uplifting episode, we'll discuss mental health, relationships, self-care, emotional well-being, and personal growth. Join me and with my co-host, Kenya Evelyn, a therapeutic life coach, where sometimes we'll even welcome special guests to our show that share their experience and expertise. So let's embark on this transformative path together and discover a healthier and happier you. Hey, welcome back to Coach Soul. And, we've been celebrating 250 years of our nation. And, it's a challenge when we talk about celebration and freedom, because as a military veteran, I have a heart for veterans. And today is not just another veteran story. I think there's a unique story that needs to be talked about here. Mm-hmm. Anne is our guest today. She's an award-winning coach, author, TEDx speaker, and creator of what we call Grace Trail. And from what I remember, Anne, you talked about cracking the Grace Code. It challenges us to rethink where wisdom comes from and how we access it during life's hardest seasons. And so I want to talk more beyond just the resilience. We were exploring what happens when people stop searching for answers outside of themselves and begin listening to what has been waiting within them all along. So, Anne, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit, the viewers and the listeners, about yourself and how did you, just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Anne Jolles, and I living here in beautiful Plymouth, Massachusetts, where certainly is America's hometown, but now it's Grace Trail's hometown. And so I'm a coach, I'm a mother, wife, and I was gifted this honor of really receiving Grace Trail and receiving the 5 questions at a terrible time in my life. And I was lucky enough to be listening because we get all this intuition, we get all these messages that we are too busy or it's too loud to hear. And I was just lucky enough to hear 5 amazing words, 5 amazing questions, write them down and start using them. And that's how this happened. So this is really a story about Grace Trail helps people, puts them in a place and a space where they can actually find and listen to their own answers. Because as you know, it's too noisy in our heads. It's too noisy in the world. People are burdened by fear and uncertainty and anxiety. And Grace Trail lets people walk 5 simple questions that help quiet the mind so they can find their footing in this crazy world and decide what their next step is going to be.
I mean, Anne, it sounds like a miracle discovery, because we all talk about this monkey chatter that goes on. We keep feeding it bananas, the monkeys, and they just keep chattering. So, it's amazing what you kind of have done. And for most people, we spend our lives asking, how do I fix this problem? As if we're a broken car or something, how do I fix it? Your work seems to ask a different question entirely. And is it the right question where it says, what is the cost of living a life where we're always trying to fix ourselves?
Well, it's very interesting. Let me ask you a question. I want to ask you something. What are you grateful for right now in this moment? What are you grateful for?
A breath, just to breathe air, to live, because without air, we cannot live. And so I'm thankful for the air that I breathe that gives me the energy to keep going from day to day so that I can help other people.
Well, welcome to Grace Trail. You just took the first step on the Grace Trail. I'm so grateful that Grace starts with G because it can start with the gratitude question, because the 5 questions are in a powerful order that sort of cascade upon each other. So just by you answering the gratitude question, you feel better. You know, your neurochemicals change, you calm down, you sort of find your footing in what's going right in life, and that prepares you for the next 4 questions. And each question, like the second question is, so I should first say that Grace Trail is an acronym for gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. So the 5 questions that I heard in my kitchen so long ago were, even though life's difficult, Anne, what can you be grateful for? What do you need to release to move forward? What's calling out for acceptance in your life? How can you challenge yourself to move in the direction of your choice? And what can you embrace as possible in your life? Those are the 5 Grace Trail questions. And each of them, it's in a powerful sequence. That gratitude, you find your feet on what's positive, what's strong, what's true. Release, makes room as you put things down, even if it's only temporarily, to look at the question of acceptance, because these release and acceptance are hard questions, really hard questions. And do you have a question?
I was thinking, in your TED talk, you talk about cracking the Grace code.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, our beginning of our conversation with this monkey chatter, and it's always going. And it's like, what if the code was never locked? What if people have simply just forgotten how to listen? And I don't mean that in a demeaning way.
No, that's not a demeaning way. It's very funny because I said, what are you grateful for? And you immediately just stepped right into the answer. When I'm walking Grace Trail, it's right outside my home here in Plymouth, Mass. When I'm walking it and talking to people, and I've asked people, what are you grateful for? They're like, I'm not answering. People are afraid to share. They feel very vulnerable. The nice thing about Grace Trail is Grace Trail gives you a language to talk, questions to answer when life is just too heavy. It's just too much. And the rules on the Grace Trail is, the first one is, you don't have to answer these questions out loud. You can keep them private. People need to know that. And that listening on the Grace Trail is just as important as sharing. So be a really good listener, because we don't get listened to enough. We don't get seen and heard enough. And it's a gift that you give people. And the next thing is, whatever you hear on the trail stays on the trail. So I try to make a safe container for people to find their footing and find their own answers. And I find that when people have those simple rules and they know they don't have to perform, they don't have to have the right answer, they don't have to share, they all do. But
Grace, I mean, when you're thinking about, we're always in our head anyways.
Yep.
What voice do we listen to?
Right.
That's the complex question I believe we get ourselves into, because do I believe what I believe? Do I believe what other people say? I mean, there's so many different plethora of things to try to gravitate our attention to. How do we know how to listen? What should we listen to?
Well, it's interesting. Grace Trail's built on curiosity. That's it. I don't have anyone's answers. I am not an app, a course, a book, a therapist. The 5 powerful questions ask you an open-ended question so you can listen to your own heart, your own brain, your soul, and listen for the answers that appear. Because the 5 questions may be placed on a trail, and they are, but they really help people create their own path.
And it's okay to create their own path. I mean, what if the fear of, I'm afraid to venture out? And that's the thing. I often find that it's the fear of the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
That we don't want to know because we don't know. Maybe somebody lived in a life of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And the silence of something changing different is unsettling for them.
Right.
So
That's
what way
right.
does Grace help that person to feel the calmness and the fear of the unknown.
Well, it's really interesting, but the sequence of the questions really walk through exactly what you're saying. Because as you walk through just to the release question, if we just like dive a little deeper on that, that's really two questions in there. And the first question is, if you really have to figure out what you want to release, let go of, put down, the first question is you ask yourself, what's in my control? What's in my control? That's a great question. The second question is, what's out of my control? And if you name that and notice that and put it like two piles right in front of you. Okay, this is what's in my control this moment. This is what's out of my control in this moment. I'll tell you, push all that stuff that's out of your control right over there. Because all that is obsessive worrying. You waste your time. We waste our whole life thinking of all these things that are out of our control. So right there, if we give people a little container that says, what is in your control right now that you can possibly let go of? Like for a caretaker, just put it down. Find time for yourself to take care of yourself. You know, that's what is in your control that you can take action steps on right now. So that's the first way that Grace Trail, not the first way, that's right up front. After gratitude is release, helping people to distinguish what's in their control, what's out of their control. That brings you now, clears the way for looking at the really hard question sometimes of what do I need to accept? And what I love to say to people is you can't force acceptance. You just can't. Acceptance is going to come in its own time. So if you're not ready to accept something, can you at least acknowledge it? Because most of us, we live a lot of our time in denial, right? I don't want to look at that elephant in the living room. Forget it. I'm not looking over there. It's not there if I don't look. Well, what if you just stepped into a little bit of acknowledgement and looked at, felt, smelled it? What exactly it is that you cannot accept? There's no timeline on Grace Trail. People get their answers, get to places in their own time. But the R and the A in the word grace are where people really find their struggles. And so go on.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, when you think about control, oftentimes it's difficult to accept, to acknowledge, because what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
And owning the control of being wrong helps me not to acknowledge or, you know, accept. So what do you do then with that person?
Well, I don't do anything with them. I just encourage people to walk the sequence of questions. If some are hard, you can skip it.
Okay.
Go to the other questions. Ask the other questions. Listen for what you got for answers. And then keep walking. And when you're ready, come on back to those 5 questions, because I can say with really good surety, that the answers are different every time you walk it. And you start to, they're hardwired into my brain. Grace Trail is just part of how I operate. My husband and I actually talked the language together. It saved our marriage a long time ago. And I don't mean we were going to get divorced. I meant things were so painful that we didn't have the language to process it and walk to a better place. It just stopped us in our tracks. But people can come back an infinite number of times. Each time will be unique, and each time they'll move just an inch closer to where they want to be.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a huge epiphany, because if there's a physical Grace Trail near you, you can go walk at any time. And I have stories of people who go and walk the Grace Trail and can't answer some of the questions and have to skip them. And they go back and they inch towards it. It's almost like, you know, I hate to say peeling that onion, but that's what it's like. It's taken us years to get here. It's not going to go away or be revealed in one time walking the Grace Trail. It's a process. It's a life journey. It's part of your life journey. And it's built on curiosity. I don't have your answers.
Right.
You have them. Compassion. Be nice to yourself on the Grace Trail. And courage, because let me tell you, answering these questions can take courage.
And
So,
when you think about the questions, I often tell people don't ask how,
mm,
because it gives you a brain paralysis of thought, so to speak.
mm-hmm,
And then you feel the tension of how within your body, your mind. If you allow yourself, your body to feel it, you can feel the tenseness.
right.
But if we change the question to a what,
Mm,
oh, you feel your body less tense. The
definitely.
mind begins to flood with thought, and so it's not with paralysis. So
Right.
oftentimes when we think about questions, ask the what. What
Mm,
is it that I can do? What is it that I can manage?
right.
And that way it helps you to really flow through. But here you have, all this coming up, and then your C. What is next in the C word for grace?
Well, the challenge. Um, it can be a challenge to yourself. How do I want to challenge myself to move forward? It can be a challenge. Who needs to hear a challenge from me? You can also challenge other people. If
But
this is
Anne,
an
I'm
open-ended
tired. I'm
question,
exhausted. It's life. I don't want to be challenged anymore. Now
so
what do I
then,
got to
so
do?
then what do you need? So what's your challenge right there? You just said it. You're exhausted. What's your challenge?
Exactly.
Slow down and relax and take care of you. Rest. That's what I'm hearing as the problem. However you can do that, whenever you can do that, I don't know. But the challenge is to find out how you can do that because you're running on empty. Fumes are not going to keep you going. And that's challenge takes commitment, takes courage. And yeah, that's exactly right. I'm glad you said that. People are exhausted.
Yes.
People are overwhelmed. And I'm not telling them they have to make a goal sheet from this. I'm telling them that they just have to figure out their very best next step forward in the direction of their choice, not on their to-do list. That's not the challenge. The challenge is, where do you put your precious energies? Where do you put your precious resources of time and thought? Where do you want to place them and put them so you move in the direction of your choice?
But what if it's just my monkey chatter that causes my exhaustion? I didn't get enough sleep because this monkey chatter was just going on and on and on. It's almost like the song that never ends type thing, you
Right,
know? And
right.
so can become difficult. And that's one of the things I want our viewers and listeners to understand, that within the acronym of GRACE, you're giving yourself grace to take your time to go through the acronym of GRACE.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Give yourself the time. I challenge your listeners. Try the 5 Grace Trail questions and then see how they feel at the end. It's, so I was given the words, or I heard them. I don't know how I was gifted them, but I heard them and I was gifted the questions. They are in an amazing order that we can do it right now if you want. If you want to walk through all 5, we could do that. And you tell me how you feel at the end, because I can't tell you why it works so well, other than I see a cascading effect where each question leads to the next, prepares the next question to be asked and answered. Do you want to try it during the podcast? Do you
Yeah,
want to see it?
let's try it.
Let's
Let's
just
go
do
with the
it.
last. What's the last letter in GRACE? Is the E. Let's
Embrace the
finish up with
possibilities.
that one. Okay.
Okay. All right. So with Embrace the Possibilities, I love to tell people this is where you get to invite your imagination onto the trail. No negative self-talk allowed for this question. No judgment, no criticism. Just, I'll give you the question that I give to the elementary school students when I go in and walk Grace Trail with them. We're asking as an adult, what can you embrace as possible? So I'm going to ask you as your child, your inner child, what if you had a magic wand and you could wave it in your life? What would you have appear in front of you that may make you happier, stronger, less stressed, and where you want to be? What can you embrace as possible?
Not having to work as hard. It'd be nice to go off off trail, out in the nature, in the woods, in the mountains with a nice, lake fed stream, and you hear nature and you're just embracing nature. That would be a lifetime dream, which I'm getting that close to, by the way.
You are.
So I'm embracing it. So yes, when you think about what you share, I'm thinking the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams. And how he helped each patient to embrace something unusual. The thing about swimming in spaghetti noodles in a swimming pool, and he made that happen for her. How often do we forget? I call it the Peter Pan syndrome. We become too much of an adult that we forget how to imagine.
That's right.
We forget to imagine.
Right. I got a great question for this. I got a great story for this question. When I first started with the Grace Trail, I was walking with my granddaughter, who was probably 4 or 5, and we were in the field, and it had just been like a path had been mowed, and the grass was 4 feet, if you can imagine that, in June, 4 feet high, and the birds were nesting. It was spectacular. And she starts, a little bunny hopped out onto the trail in front of us, and she went forward, and I knew I should step back. She stepped down, she gets down close to the bunny, and she and the bunny are looking at each other. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so all of a sudden the bunny hops back into the grass. And I said, what was that? It looked like you guys were, communicating. She goes, oh, didn't you know I could speak bunny? I go, I never knew that about you. She goes, oh, yeah, and I speak bird. And she starts flapping her arms and running along the trail, and the birds are flying all overhead and chirping. And I catch up. She goes, oh, yeah, by the way, I speak bird very well, too. And that's imagination. We all had that, Steve.
We
but
do.
Life stomped it out of us. It is still in there, dying to get out for a little fun like you want, off trail, listening to the birds. It's still in there. Grace Trail helps to quiet the brain by asking the 5 questions. So when you get to the embrace question, hopefully your imagination can join you on the trail, because that's really where the adventure begins.
Anne, I appreciate walking through that acronym, and we've kind of done some practice, but there's something that I really want to hone in on, because you said this just came to you.
Yeah.
But there's an impact in a moment in your life that impacted you to discover this.
Right.
And I think it's pertinent for our listeners, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. It's really interesting you're asking me that question, because the woman I work with who's helping me with media and stuff, she's like, when did this really happen, Anne?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a small Irish Catholic family, only 6 kids, and I was a 5th out of 6. My mother was an alcoholic, and my father did not come home much. And so much chaos, so much insanity in the home. I don't mean insanity, but a lot of turbulence. And I was one of the kids who kept saying, this is crazy. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. I have to find a better way. I did not want to repeat what I was being brought up with. I did not want to repeat. I wanted to break the cycle of addiction. That was something I didn't have the words for when I was young, but as soon as I could get to a Alateen meeting, as soon as I could get to Al-Anon, I read everything. I was always searching for a better way. And I think living with all those challenges, and I'm not complaining, I'm just reporting, because there was a lot of good in my life also. But that set me up for constantly listening for different answers, watching for different answers, and hoping there was a different way that I could live rather than the lot of what I was seeing in my home.
When you think about that, that's the impact of owning our story. When we own a story, nobody can take it away from us.
Right.
But when we own it, we acknowledge it. And through the acknowledgement, we don't allow it to define us. We define
No.
it. And it's
Right.
the way that we react. And so that's what I try to encourage those that I encounter of empower and embrace the ability to sit in the emotion.
Right.
I'm not the one that says, let it go. You can't
Right.
let it go. And so it's what ways can we react to the emotion that we're having. It's the same thing of splinters. We get a splinter, it hurts, but it also hurts coming out. But after the years that it's healed, we don't remember where it's at. We know that we got hurt, but we don't remember much about the hurt. And the same thing with emotion and a mindset and things of that nature. And when I'm hearing you, I'm just when I'm thinking about what you're sharing, perhaps healing begins when we finally become still enough to hear the answers. I've been patiently waiting within within us. And
Right.
so for the close of our podcast, and after all these years, what have you learned that people are actually searching for beneath the gratitude, resilience, healing, and hope? And so what is that thing underneath all of it?
Wow. I think it's a beating heart that so much wants peace, joy, hope, possibility. I don't think that ever dies out if we're still alive and sitting up and breathing. And I believe people walk the Grace Trail for that reason. They want to find their footing in the insanity of the world and choose their next step in the direction of where they want to go and where they know they want to be. I don't have an answer. Like I said, I don't have answers for them. I only have really good questions. And the testimonials that are coming back to me about people who are walking Grace Trail only encourage me to keep doing this work and putting the trails in across the country and, finding ways for people to walk Grace Trail right in their home. I have people who put up the questions right in their kitchen. They ask them throughout the day. You don't even have to go in order. And so I think people have an unending curiosity, but a desire to be happier, healthier, live life with a purpose. I mean, everyone has a different reason, but I
For
think
sure.
I do believe that meaning and purpose is at the bottom of it.
I appreciate you sharing this information, Anne. Where can our listeners find this information?
They can go to gracetrail.com. I just redid my website. It's beautiful. They can see all the trails that are in across the country. I'm licensing trails across the country so people can go walk wherever they are. I'm a coach, but guess what? I've turned coaching upside down. They turn into their own coaches with these questions. And I have products there that they can walk it right in their kitchen. They can bring it to work. And I have my book. But all of that's on gracetrail.com, and I'd love people to sign up for my newsletter. And I hope to see all of them on the trail at some point.
And what we talked about off mic was fascinating.
Yes.
And as a veteran, your son is a veteran that served in Afghanistan. And
Yes.
through those efforts, tell us a little bit about what happened with Grace Trail and the VA.
Okay. Well, it's an amazing story because the whole Grace Trail came about because when my son was in Afghanistan in combat, I struggled. I mean, I had to find a place to put my fear. I had to get it out of my body. That's when I actually made a physical Grace Trail along a trail in Plymouth. And so this is a military inspired story. And my son returned, and thank God. And I tried for many years. He was getting a lot of services at the VA here in Boston. And I tried to get a Grace Trail onto VA property. And I wasn't successful for a long, long time until I got a call from someone at the VA who said, we're ready. And so in the fall, the Brockton VA, which is part of the whole Massachusetts healthcare VA system, has decided to put in a Grace Trail for all of the veterans who both live there, reside on campus, all the veterans who come back for services, for their families, and certainly for the staff. And it's the language of resilience. That's what Grace Trail is. And they're hoping to have an alternative community wellness resource that's in place when anyone needs it any time of day on their campus.
That
It's
sounds
really
great.
exciting.
And I want to encourage veterans that, hey, if this is something that's of interest, we're going to point them to gracetrail.com.
Yes.
And if you can just be that spokesperson for the veterans, I will
please,
try to
yes.
go through my connections at the
Thank you.
NDC to say, look, we really need this, not only just for veterans, okay? I'm not trying to single out veterans. I'm just doing this because we're celebrating 250 years of our freedom. And what better way that we celebrate our physical freedom, but through Grace Trail, we can have emotional freedom and living a life that's open, honest, and authentic. And so until next time, Anne, thank you so much for being on our show. And so until next time, take care and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on Coach Soul. As we wrap up, we want to remind our listeners of a few key points. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content shared here is based on professional opinion but may not apply to everyone's situation. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your mental health care. If you're in a crisis, please seek immediate professional help or contact a crisis hotline. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapist-client relationship. For personal advice, please consult with your licensed mental health professional in your area. Remember, your mental health journey is unique. While we hope this information is helpful, it is crucial to work directly with the qualified personnel for your specific needs. Thank you again for tuning in to Coach Soul, and we'll see you next time.